good afternoon from wherever you're joining us. Welcome to our newest Mentor Collective Partner webinar, Academic Help Seeking in College Students, Strategies for Assessment and Intervention. We are going to spend some great time together today, hopefully giving you some tangible ideas and suggestions and ways to engage with your students and use our platform to advance your academic help seeking outcomes in your students. My name is Annemiek Rice. I lead the partner success team here at Mentor Collective. In a former life, I was an academic advisor and leader of assessment efforts within enrollment management and student affairs. I spent my career in educational technology, helping institutions use data to drive student outcomes. And I am joined today by my wonderful colleague, Erin.
Hello, everybody. I'm Erin Mayhood, Chief Product Officer here at Mentor Collective. I have been here for 3 years. And prior to MC, I also came from higher education, working in information sciences, usability, engagement, and of course, love to speak on the topic of assessment and student success. So thank you for having me here today.
Great. So enough about us. Let's get started on why you're really here. A few tips before we jump into our content for the day. Many of you have joined us at webinars before. We're grateful for that. Your audio is on mute. You're welcome to turn your camera on or to move around or catch up on lunch or some movement if you need to. We would love for you to chat in to introduce yourself to your fellow partners. Everyone here is an active Mentor Collective partner. Maybe you'll connect with someone offline about different strategies or DM them in the chat. But we'd love for you to chat your name and school and your experience with Mentor Collective here. We're also joined on the line by quite a bit of our partner success team. So you may even see your partner success manager, your onboarding manager in the room. Welcome to say hello to them as well. And as we go, your engagement and your feedback is helpful. So whether that's a question in the chat, a quick little heart or fire emoji or whatever keeps you active and entertained today, you're welcome to do so. As I mentioned, questions can go in the chat. You can drop them at any point in the webinar. I think there are probably some folks here who might pipe in along the way, but Erin and I will also stop twice, both to answer questions about some of the functionality that we're showing off today. And then also at the end, we talk about some of the tips and suggestions that we have. So feel free to throw those in. All right, in today's session, we're going to cover 3 main topics. The first is some of the evidence around academic help seeking. I always find it's really helpful to know what is known and what is unknown. What do we know in the field of higher education? What assumptions or hypotheses can you make at your own institution with 40 years of peer-reviewed research to support you? Where are we maybe more emerging in our practices? So we're going to start with some foundational knowledge about academic help seeking. We are then going to dive in. Erin is really going to show us how exactly the Mentor Collective platform is going to give you early insights and aggregate understanding of academic help seeking intentions. And then finally, I will wrap up with a very commonly asked question from all of our partners today, which is, how do I maximize the response rates on the surveys that I send to students so I can get more of this great academic help seeking data? So that's our plan for today, and let's get started. So I would love, just as a starting point, going into this conversation, did you already have academic help seeking as a desired outcome of your mentorship program? I ask this because many of you tell us we want to increase sense of belonging, we want to increase retention. I would love to know if you already knew or had decided that help seeking was a behavior you were looking to impact through mentorship, or if this is not yet something that was on your radar as an element of an outcome of the mentorship program. So take a minute to log in, and many of you may recognize this type of question. We've been asking all of our partners this time of year to complete a survey about your outcomes and what's important to you. So get used to being asked to tell us what's important to you so that we can use it to guide some of our efforts here. All right, and Mackenzie, if you want to switch it over to results, we can share those out to folks as well. Okay, so quite a bit of a spectrum here. I wasn't expecting this to be 100% very important because, again, this is even a more emerging area of focus for Mentor Collective. But we're going to jump into this, hopefully, be unabashed in saying, my goal is to convince you that it should be. So if you aren't already in the very important, maybe you'll leave just a few minutes with some evidence to support why you should expect your mentorship program to impact academic help seeking. So I'm gonna do a very high level recent media and literature review here, hopefully also to arm you with some things that you can say about the value of your program. So starting off with this report from Titan Partners, these are all kind of 2023-ish, so very recent reports. This report shows that students in general in higher education are very often unaware of resources available to them. I don't think that's a surprise to most of us, but in particular, first-gen students are more likely to know about resources and less likely to use them. So really looking at this paradox of the fact that awareness of resources is not enough to drive actual use of resources, especially within the first generation student population. Recommendations from this analysis include things like timely and targeted messaging, timely and targeted being really key, and then normalizing help-seeking behavior, such as through peer-to-peer interventions. This next comes from Inside Higher Ed. So similarly, when we look at first-gen low-income learners, we see sometimes that struggles can be attributed to a lack of social capital or an understanding of what is often referred to as the hidden curricula of higher education. This could be things like knowledge of academic resources that are not necessarily as present in normal life. So the term office hours, what does that mean to someone who hasn't been indoctrinated into the vernacular of higher education? And in addition to the understanding of the hidden curricula, that often the comfort to pursue can be reported in a lower rate within low income learners and first generation learners. And then finally, Chronicle of Evidence-Based Mentoring. Research indicates that many students that need the most help tend to avoid seeking assistance, potentially because of concern of scrutiny of their struggles. So the attribution of, I don't want someone to know that I need help for fear that that could be held against me. So this particular article speaks to a longitudinal quasi-experimental study over almost 400 students to see how interventions related to social networking and mentorship could impact help seeking and in turn academic success. And the results showed that students kind of engaging their networks, their ability to connect socially with others, and their desire to seek help influence both GPAs and the student-instructor relationship. So in short, lots of attention to this topic, lots of evidence that both it's important and very importantly, it is an adjustable, changeable, coachable behavior. It is not something that is firmly rooted and the students show up as they are. It is one of the things we can change with intervention. So, and again, meta-analysis, 40 years on academic help-seeking behavior. One is help-seeking is important specifically to academic achievement. So help-seeking as a structured and interactive social behavior has been found to have a positive correlation with academic achievement. That could include performance, meaning GPA, credit completion, etc. It also encourages positive learning and increases self-efficacy. So academic help-seeking behavior is not as simple as just using a resource. It's also a skill. It involves acknowledging a need for assistance, locating people who can assist, articulating the problem to be solved, evaluating if it worked. So these skills impact not just the GPA, but long-term success, like integrating cognitive and social skills and developing self-regulation skills. So that's why it's important. We talked a little bit about the inequity. So there's definitely some evidence that students who need the most help tend to avoid help-seeking behavior because of that scrutiny. Studies have often shown that exclusion by fellow students, so that concept of negative peer pressure, can lessen help-seeking behavior. Studies have also shown that students in social groups and with positive encouragement of that social behavior can influence help-seeking behavior. So essentially the role of the peer repeatedly comes up as very influential in this help-seeking behavior space. And this reinforces what we already know, what you already know. We share this data point quite a bit when we're talking with you as current partners and as others who are thinking about becoming partners, which is, what does the student consider to be their support system? And the top is always friends. So 65% of students say they turn their friends to receive support to figure out what support is available, to be motivated or encouraged to use it. And this is where peer mentors in particular can be so influential. Going back to the research on academic help seeking and its impact and its relationship to mentorship, there are a number of studies that show that mentorship is an effective way to increase the behavior because of the power of peer to create those social norms, and of course, to help students navigate those unfamiliar environments and resources. Some other studies also show that upwards of 59% of students will seek help from a peer before an official office or staff member. So just again, reinforcing that, that power of that particular intervention. And then finally, some of you may have even seen this in previous conversations we've had with our partners, but of course, resource utilization is a great metric to track when it comes to academic help seeking behavior. We're going to show you a few others in the Mentor Collective system that you can track as well. But wonderful work out of UNC Greensboro's Mentoring Institute, where they have, or published in the Mentoring Institute publication, where they have actually been able to look at mentored and non-mentored student populations and see what types of patterns emerged in utilization of all different kinds of campus resources. And maybe you should be thinking, like, what are the resources I'm particularly trying to drive to, and how can I normalize and encourage utilization of those? So before we get into the newest element of the features, I want to remind you what your mentorship program is already doing to drive help seeking. Your mentor training that your mentors are accessing on the platform is already teaching mentors to make referrals. It's already teaching mentors about their role in this process. The discussion guides that your participants access within the platform are often referring participants back to institution resources. You can upload custom resources for your participants. The most common custom resource we see is you saying, here are all the resources at my institution, and we will put that into the system. So it's really easy for mentees and mentors to find. And then finally, flags. I'm sure so many of you are interacting with a lot of flags today. These are created often to indicate a potential need for more encouragement or successful encouragement. This could say, I referred my mentee to the tutoring center, or it could say the student needs help in this way. They need a referral or encouragement or an invitation or something similar. But now we are not just limited to that. So I'm going to pass it to Erin, and she's going to talk a little bit about our newest update and how it is enhancing your academic help seeking, tools.
Thank you. And one moment to switch screens here, and I will carry on. All right, so Anamik set me up beautifully here. And earlier this year, we were very excited to announce to all of you that we were able to build into the product live visibility into results for sense of belonging and academic self-efficacy. So now when you're logging in to the partner dashboard, you're able to see those results coming in live. We always knew that our roadmap was going to continue to increase transparency on all of the items that we assess. And so now with these new releases, we are able to show you live results for academic help seeking, as well as career decision self-efficacy. So for those of you who are running programs with career outcomes, this is also available to you live. Today, we're going to spend our session talking about academic help seeking. I absolutely know that we'll be talking about career programs here in an upcoming session. So I'll go back. Anamik shared a great overview of literature and momentum that we're seeing around academic help seeking. So from the product team perspective, we're also monitoring all of the literature and the momentum. And I'll say during COVID, the lack of ability to visibly see which students were struggling, which students were not, taking away from those social spaces and those live interactions really brought this to the forefront. Also, with the increase in mental health and wellness issues that campuses are reporting, we were seeing a stronger need to really provide more live data on assessment and different types of assessment. So academic help seeking, our friends at Center for Evidence-Based Mentorship, we love the work of Dr. Jean Rhodes and her lab there. Really, we're making the case that there is absolutely a place for assessing help-seeking behavior within a mentorship program, because mentorship can not only be provide visibility into some of the things going on, but can be the intervention itself. And because peers and near-peer mentors can really provide the level of encouragement students might need to take advantage of resources, we could really pair you knowing who is likely to seek help and which students need some extra assistance, extra nudging in that direction. All of this is pointing to the fact that within our mentorship structures, we have an assessment framework in place for all of your programs. And this is really, this is our guiding light and our focus. And I'm highlighting here on the bottom of your screen, just really where we're focused today, the way mentorship, the way we can assess and foster those student success factors. And so we're adding this to what we can assess. Now, of course, we like to see it through your lens, not doing assessment only to study what's going on the campus, but to also think about the actionable pieces of action that you can take based on the information. So we do know that to increase persistence on your campuses, to increase the likelihood of student success, you want as many students as possible feeling like they belong, having academic self-efficacy to help them succeed, and knowing when they're encountering some obstacles, being aware of that and being able to reach out and get the help when they need the help to remove those obstacles. So today I'm going to spend some time just sharing in more detail how you're going to get there, but also start off by pointing out, as Annemiek has started, the actions that we're hoping what you might think about as we're showing the data live in the product. So we are really looking to share to help expose low likelihood of help seeking from some of your students. If they have low likelihood to reach out to academic support departments, let's say the tutoring center, let's say I've noticed in some of our programs, some students indicating their top goal is to explore different career pathways or network, but have a low likelihood to reach out and to explore those things. These can be flags that can be indicators of programming support that the student might need. We are hoping that this will allow you to share student responses for their care teams or advisors who can use those insights to really coach and really have meaningful conversations. We're definitely hearing from all of you that students are reluctant to share the type of information that might be most useful to your care teams, to your advisors. And we're hoping this can help you prompt really meaningful conversations and help the student receive the help they need. And of course, we're hoping that to really maximize the impact that your mentorship can have on your campus and really help you tell the story of how this fits into your student success strategy. And I'm going to start with how it works with showing some screenshots. And I'm doing this largely because, of course, we have personal student data in our dashboards, and we have one institution, thank you to our friends at Florida International University, who has allowed us to show live where they are this time of year from their dashboard in aggregate, and I will end with that, but I'm going to start by showing you a flow through how this works in the product. Right before I show those live shots, though, here's an example survey, the survey questions that are in our student success program design. And we get asked a lot what those questions are. We design these questions with researchers and best practices, campuses around the country. And what I have highlighted right here are the help-seeking questions. So in the coming months, how likely is it that you will reach out to professionals in a career or area you're interested in? Send emails to professors if you have a question or need clarification. Meet with professors and support staff to discuss your goals and interests, and meet regularly with advisors. You can see how these questions, simple wording, easy for the student to respond to, but really provide potentially a lot of insight into where their head is, how likely they are to reach out. I know for my college age children, I am coaching them to do these things all the time and wish I knew their answers to these questions. All right. I'm going to start at the view that you most likely see when you open up your dashboard. This is the top of our dashboard, just to orient you to the program intelligence chart, sharing how many mentorships are created on your campus, the activity levels, the ability to see high-level metrics. And I'm hoping many of you move down the page from your program intelligence chart and see this sub-navigation and this assessments tab here. This is where we're really going to focus today. This is where all of that really rich live data from those assessment questions, assessment responses are coming in. And you can get the high-level view here of the numbers, the changes since last week. But today, I really want to zero in on these charts, and so we can spend a few minutes just seeing how you might process this information and things that you could take away from this information. So average assessment scores over time. You can see here the first drop down allows you to change view on the type of participant, and the right-hand drop down shows the assessment area. So I have already gone in before this presentation and I have chosen academic help seeking. I'm sure many of you today are used to seeing sense of belonging as your first option there. It is still there, but you can go in and switch to all of the different types available. Here you can see the average scores over time. Anamik is wonderful at coaching us that you should expect to see changes over time with experiences that the students are having on the campus. You will see potentially fluctuations in how the students are doing at different periods of time on your campus. You might be interested in diving into trends and patterns that you can see with the specific questions. And this will show you kind of what might be driving the aggregate score. So are there areas that people are more receptive, less receptive? Are people more comfortable with career type outreach, but maybe not so much with their professors? This is showing you how you are trending. And you can also see in these lines, should you be on the second or third administration of the survey questions, you can see the difference over time in what responses. So the start of your program survey versus the end of your survey, your program. So we do like to see increase in the trends. You won't always see this. Again, environment and experiences on your campus could be influencing behaviors here and responses here. Now, the score distribution chart, the way we talk about this a lot internally and with our campuses is this really allows you to zoom in on who has low scores right now. So we love to talk about, we love to acknowledge the high scores. We love when things are tracking in the right direction. But the reality could be that you could have a group of students who are experiencing low scores, and you want to be able to click in on the list of students who are experiencing, who have reported low scores here. So there you can export share out with their care teams. And so we could become aware of who might need some action or intervention here. And again, I hope many of you are familiar with this, but at the top of your dashboard, you have alerts that will light up, that will tell you if you have students who have low scores, and the academic help seeking score is now up there as well for you to see how many participants are experiencing that. Now, this is the part of the screen that I will not be able to show you in our live demo here in a moment, because you can see actual student data. So all of this is now anonymized here. These are not real names, but wanted you to show when you're using our charts and you're pulling open a list of students, you can also go in and filter. And we have many filters, including by responses to the assessment surveys. You also, many of you are taking advantage of what we call institutionally provided data. And there are some campuses who are thinking about academic status, grades, or different statuses that could be loaded into the system. So you could filter out and monitor students who are in a certain academic status and monitor their help-seeking behavior scores, just to understand, are they tracking in a direction where they might be seeking help, or are they continuing to struggle in those areas? So a lot of use cases that you can leverage, that you can take a look at here. Now, going one step deeper here, you have your list of students within the product. And if you click on a particular student and open their profile, you can also see record of their assessment surveys. And by clicking through, you can see specific responses to their questions. What I love about this particular view is that we know that one assessment or one answer to a specific question will not be telling you the entire story about this student. And so here, as you're looking through and navigating through, you can see, yes, how they have scored, but you can also see who their mentor is, and you can see their responses to their matching survey, what they were hoping for, what their goals were, what life experiences that they might be going through right now. So you can get a more holistic view of this student. Self-reported, which I always like to point out. Sometimes our student information systems, although they are a wealth of information, certain types of information, what's great about the profile in the MC platform is all of this information is reported by the student and how they are feeling right now and what life experiences might be influencing them right now. Right, and then one more before I jump into the Alive Partner dashboard. This, Annemiek will spend some more time on this, but I wanted to show the visual before Annemiek provides you with those tips for getting more responses to your assessment surveys. But there is a nice visual in the dashboard that shows you how you are trending in terms of response rates. And we know that the start of program assessments do always tend to have the highest number of responses. It goes down. Student behavior, we are always struggling with this when we talk about this a lot, but this is where you can see where you are in terms of number of responses, how you're trending, and this might prompt you to take some action in some of the interventions that Annemiek is going to be talking about here in a moment. All right. And if there are any questions in the chat, I welcome them, and we'll also leave more time here just in a moment. As I mentioned before, Florida International, thank you so much for your permission to show where you are in your program right now. So I'll start at the top of the screen, familiar to all of you, the program chart here, or the intelligence chart, where you can see how things are trending. And here is how you get to the assessments tab, where we're spending most of our time today. And you can see where things are scoring for this institution right now. And I love to go down and look at the richness of the data in these charts to see how am I trending over the course of the fall semester with academic help-seeking behavior. I can also switch and go back to see where's my sense of belonging versus my help-seeking responses, and how are things going here. My average score for per assessment survey prompt. These are the questions that we ask in those assessment surveys. Also, quick tip, I know many of you are interested at different times of the year. Could you remind me what assessment questions you are asking? This is where you find those responses. This is an easy way to pull them forward. And so you can see where this particular institution has kind of higher responses versus slightly lower responses, but overall trending in a good direction. This is where we look to find the list of students with the average score below 3. It's a 5-point scale looking for students with low scores. If I were to click here, I would be in, it would take me to the list of students who responded to this assessment who scored low. So I could do things like navigate to their full profile to take a look at the holistic view. I could do things like export, send it to their advisors. I could leverage filters to segment students so that I could more easily pass along names and information to different members of my campus. And for this particular campus, they have so far only administered the first assessment. And so for what you're seeing here is the early view before the second and third assessments have gone out. And so this is how it looks when you are just at the beginning of the process. They have their first set of scores. All right. I will pause and ask if we have any product demo related questions or product functionality related questions before we move on back to you, Annemiek.
Is it okay to unmute and ask a question or go in the chat?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hi, so I'm totally new to this. I think we just became users. So could you remind me what the third category was for those assessment surveys? There was sense of belonging, academic help seeking, and what was the third one?
Academic self-efficacy.
Okay, great.
And then if you have those academic self-efficacy, and there's career decision self-efficacy for our adult online or career-oriented programs.
Great, thank you.
Of course, and welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
Thanks.
Any additional questions, chat, or feel free to unmute.
We can come back to questions as we go.
Absolutely, if they come to you.
I will move us into some practical tips and some information sharing about response rates. Just confirming you're seeing my screen. Yes, okay, great. So survey response tips. In a former life, I led assessment, which included a lot of surveys, and wanted to kind of download a few assumptions you can make, some research on assessment, which is a funny meta concept to think about, and also some creative, really budget-friendly and resource-friendly techniques that I've seen folks use really successfully over the years to incentivize students to complete surveys. So these are based in a higher education audience, so we're focused mostly on students enrolled in a college environment as what we're thinking about here. So first to start, I would love to know, and it doesn't have to necessarily apply specifically to your Mentor Collective surveys, but do you already use marketing strategies or rewards or incentives for any survey response rates that you're working on or responsible for, or have you do not have experience with either of those strategies yet? You can select, I think more than one of these, just to give us a sense of kind of the variance of the audience. And this is a place where I will say, not required, but certainly welcome to drop in chat as we go if you're having any luck with a certain strategy or something that you have done that has worked out for you, would love to see you be able to share with each other as we go also. Okay, so lots of folks familiar with marketing and promotion activities. A smaller percentage of you that are doing incentives, so that's great. I have some incentive suggestions today, and then a good portion of you that haven't used anything yet. So the short is both of these work really well. So let's talk about what we know about motivating participants. There is a lot of literature on survey responses, and so generally speaking, we can summarize why does someone respond into 3 buckets. I care, right? I care about the impact of this. I want to be helpful. I'm invested in my community. We find generally that response rates are higher for things like personal invitations, for things that students have a lot of experience with. So they're more likely to respond to something that they spent 25 hours doing than something that is a random topic from a random experience. The second reason would be I'm interested. I'm curious about this. This topic interests me. The process of asking and answering questions for myself is intellectually stimulating enough that I'm willing to spend my time on it. I know this sounds silly, but this is why there's a million BuzzFeed quizzes and, which animal are you and, what's your Disney princess or whatever it might be. So some of it has to do with how dry or exciting is the topic of the survey. And then finally, I get rewarded. I'm not doing it because I'm intrinsically motivated. I'm doing it because I receive some type of gain personally. And so all 3 of these need to be tapped into for you to get every response you can get. That being said, a lot of literature also goes into response rates and what they mean and what you need to get. So what I would say as someone who has done this for a long time is, the average response rate in higher ed has declined decade after decade after decade, largely because surveys have become more prolific. But many studies have taken very controlled attempts to show what does getting more responses do to our aggregate data? How does it impact bias? How does it impact the overall results? And have found that even as low as a 10% response rate will not change the generalizability or aggregate learnings from the survey compared to a 60% response rate. Now, the exception here is in the disaggregation of data. So if you are attempting to take your data and break it down into populations that are broken up by hometown or matriculation year, and you get to the point where you only have 3, an N of 3 or a respondent of 3, this is why the sample and the population of those invited is as important as the response rate from the total element here. All of that to say, we don't generally expect really more than 20% response rates on surveys, even though with lots and lots of money thrown at them don't get much higher than that. But in our case, it's not just the percentage that we care about, it's the individual respondent. So we're never going to stop thinking of more ways to get more students to respond, because every student who responds gives us information that we can use for an individual intervention. So I say that to say, don't worry about the response rate, but also, yes, worry about the response rate, because it's each individual student is meaningful. All right, so how to tap into intrinsic motivation. The first 2 things I mentioned, I care, I'm interested, really have to do with tapping into something that resonates with the person that you're inviting to take the survey. The default language that we have in our invitations try to tap into some basics of why we're inviting you. But you can certainly do quite a bit more locally in this space by previewing in your events or communications when you invite people to these programs or you talk to them about their experience, that they will be asked to complete self-reflections 3 times, that data will both help you improve the mentorship experience and it will help you support them in their journey, especially first-year students. Many of you are targeting new to your institution students, and those students are very receptive to guidance that says, if you do this, you will be successful. So being able to say to a student, we are inviting you to mentorship. Our data shows that if you participate, you have a greater likelihood of academic success and retention. Our data also shows that if you tell us your experience, we will be equipped to help you, right? Just reminding them of those things in a really human way. And then also thinking about, how can I explain to these students how I'm going to use these data, how it's going to benefit them. A great thing to do if you do use data in aggregate. For example, we saw that students who worked with an institution in Louisiana once who found that social comfort and sense of belonging was lower in students who were from not the state of Louisiana than those who were in it. And so they really amped up their like out of state social engagements for their students. They were able to say, here's an example of how we invested in you based on the things that we learned. And then finally, just as a reminder, these do work. 4 to 5 percentage points can be gained with a effective promotional campaign. So don't dismiss this as just nice to have. This is actually quite meaningful. That being said, I'm going to spend the rest of the time talking about extrinsic motivators because I think most people know how to communicate with their students. So what do we know about the effectiveness of them? Lotteries, raffles are definitely proven to work. NESE, which is tons and tons and tons of examples of many institution types, sees a bump of 3 to 5% when they're tracking that incentives are being used. The most compelling is something for everyone, but that is often the most expensive. So we look at, okay, what else is compelling? And so the other thing that we find from studies is a higher probability of winning is more compelling than a lower probability. And there are some metrics there. So if you said, you know, we will do a drawing and you will get a $2 gift card, like that's just a little too small. But something like $50 gift cards is better than one flat screen TV, for example. And then finally, something to remember, and Coppin State, which is one of our newer institutions, is really tapping into the peer-to-peer encouragement here. So if your mentors are receiving stipends, compensation, anything like that, you can connect the concept of completing surveys to how they work with their mentees. So what they're doing is they're having the paid peer mentors are saying to their mentees, in our first meeting, you are going to take this assessment. They're not looking at the assessment results, but they're making that quote unquote an agenda item of their initial conversation and then using it to discuss, like, how did you feel about that? How can I help you? That type of thing. Here's the like tricks of the trade, so to speak, on incentives that aren't always monetary. A few ways to create urgency. So the first concept is next 100 respondents, or everyone who responds by Friday, or those who complete all 3 surveys. These create a kind of a timeline or a competitiveness element to them, which often will create a bit of a spike in your responses. A non-monetary prize that someone cannot buy is often the most compelling for college students. This could be the best box seat at the home football game. It could be lunch with the dean or the president. It could be early registration. It could be like a prime parking pass at your commuter institution or community college space. So these are some of the things that you could do. You could even make it more silly, like, you know, pie in the face of the dean at the homecoming carnival or something similar. So these are often really compelling, and again, they're very budget friendly. The donations are often really compelling as well. If you have a funder of your mentorship program, you could ask for their support here, an alumni or an organization who might want to give you a $500 match to say, if we can say, you know, Raytheon will donate $500 to a student scholarship if we get 500 respondents by Friday, right? And then finally, for everyone win approaches, you could do things that I would say are budget friendly. Think what's already in your budget. What are you already doing for student programming that you can kind of tie this to? So if you have in, you know, your academic advising office or your student involvement center, you have coffee and a cookie during study break times, you say everyone who completes it will get a voucher to come by for coffee and a cookie or what have you. Or you'll be invited to our end of semester event with our alumni career leaders or something like that. So you're probably going to do that event anyway. You're probably going to invite students to that anyway, but now you can potentially tie it to incentive. So those are my, you know, little tips and tricks for incentives. I would love for some of you to think about your promotion and incentive plan. So how will you advertise and reward survey participation? You can take some of these ideas and bring them to your next check-in call with your PSM to think about what's on brand and matches your culture, what's in your budget, what's in your timeline. You should be thinking about what Erin shared, which is how will I exactly use these early insights? They don't have value just in appearing, they have value if you use them. So will you be sharing a list of low likelihood for targeted email? Will you be coaching your mentors? Will you be adding a new dashboard user who will actually look at the low likelihood of academic help seeking data and dig into that? And then finally, think about the data analysis element. We're going into, for most of you, for many of you, you're going into the mid-year check-in of your mentorship assessment, kind of 3 points of assessment here. But it is a time that you can look at data in aggregate. So you can export your assessment results. You can look at it the way that Erin shared already. And there's more than just academic help seeking data in there. So what else can you find out about sense of belonging? Are there relationships between these things? We just did our end of year assessment or summary of all of the data across all of our partners and found that on average, 10% of academic help seeking survey responses are listed as low likelihood for academic help seeking. That is 1 percentage point higher than the next factor, which is 9% for sense of belonging, and then 3% for academic self-efficacy. So this is the greatest need area as of this year, as of this group of students. And then, yeah, so would love to think about that. Take these as conversation points in your next conversation with us. And before we stop for questions, a nice quote as we were refreshing ourselves on some of the research here. Help seeking sounds like a nice to have, but as a reminder, learning is hardly ever accomplished alone. Certainly not for our students, certainly not for you. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully this gives you some good food for thought moving forward. All right, let's pause for questions. Do we have any in the chat? Folks running to a meeting? Yes, rewards can be pizza or career advancement. Very good, good point, Sammy. Tangible and intangible. Great. Well, Erin and I will stick around for a moment for any questions where folks want to drop them in. But for the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love your feedback. There will be a small survey when you exit this Zoom that just says, was this helpful? Do you have any comments for us? We would really appreciate if you would take a minute to tell us what you think so we can plan great education events for you in the future. Have a wonderful time. Question for you, Erin, or either of us. It seems students can access the Mentor Collective platform on their mobile devices. Is there an app or is it web-based access? So it is web-based access. Sammy, no app download or app requirements required. That can be mobile-based. It can be browser-based, and actually quite a bit of their interaction is also SMS or text-based as well. You're welcome.
As others are thinking of a possible question, Sammy, I'll just add that over 60% of students in an age group between 18 and 25 are typically accessing it on their phone, but for programs running with alumni or mentors or adult students, a slightly higher likelihood to be accessing via the web and a desktop.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Hope to see you in our next webinar.
Yes, take care.